Good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to help present our next installment of our Better Culture webinar series. This topic is focused on what it really means to lead, the 7 principles of leadership. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you and welcome to all of you that I see continuing to come in, especially those of you who are tuning in through one of our partnerships with area chambers of commerce across the Midwest and across the country. We are big fans of the work that chambers of commerce do, and we are so excited for the partnerships that we have to help us with our mission of making the world a better place to work, while at the same time helping you all with the mission of making your specific workplaces and your communities better and stronger places to work. If you have questions about our content and you're one of our chamber partners, please feel free to reach out to that local chamber. Thank them for funneling our content and ideas to you, and ask them what you can do to get more involved or access other of our programs, our free programs, like our monthly or bi-monthly, I suppose, caffeine and culture programs that run on alternate months of these webinars, or other services that we offer, such as articles that may come through email or other things in your direction. Again, my name is Brett Hoogeveen. I'm a co-founder of BetterCulture, and I'm excited to help kick off the program today on the 7 principles of leadership and what it really means to lead. The goal of this session today is going to be really to focus on a topic that I talk about every single day, which is leadership. But leadership is a word that a lot of people use, but when I ask them questions about what does that specifically mean? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your organization? People don't have as much clarity as you think they might have. I hear a lot of anecdotes. I hear a lot of sort of tried and true sayings, or well, what I do on a daily basis, or how I handle that is. But today I'm going to try to paint a big picture view of leadership that anyone in any organization, whether you're a manager or not, can use to help you influence your organization and the people that work around you in a positive, constructive, healthy, and productive direction. Let's get started. As I go into this webinar, we've got about 60 minutes. My goal is to present you with very concrete, actionable ideas that you can use, again, to improve your influence as a leader, but also to provide specific insights that can help your organization. In order to do that, I want to do just a little bit of stage setting on where we come from, where this content comes from, and maybe build a little bit of credibility for what you're about to hear. Our backstory, Better Culture, started because we're a family-run business. And my father was the founding president and CEO of an Omaha-based company called Quality Living, Inc., which turned into QLI. QLI's claim to fame in the Omaha market is it's still far and away the only organization to ever be named the #1 best place to work 5 times. And those 5 times happened to be 5 times consecutively that they participated. The organization was recognized time and time again as standing above every other organization in our region with regard to how employees felt about their workplace. When my father retired from QLI in 2010, my brother and myself joined him in launching an organization called Mindset, where for the last 12 years or so, we've been working hands-on with organizations across the region and the country, helping them do really 2 things: make their organizations better places to work and help their leaders grow and develop in ways where they can be more effective at operating process, but particularly at managing people, and again, building culture. Just before COVID, sort of late 2019, we said, what if we set our sights higher, and we reached out beyond those that we can work with ourselves directly, and we built a technology platform and company called BetterCulture with a bigger mission of making the whole world a better place to work. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been really focused on building digital products, software, technology, on-demand training systems, software that can go to every employee, employee engagement surveys that have a lot of detail, et cetera, that we can scale our mission to serve more clients at lower price points in more accessible ways through our work through BetterCulture. So you might hear me use the word mindset. That's because that's our other company. But in general today, I'll try to talk about BetterCulture and how we are on a mission to make the world a better place to work. And I'm glad that you're here to help us along the way. So my presentation today, I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to this word leadership that a lot of people say, but I will let you know, I don't think a lot of people have clarity on exactly what they mean. By the end of this presentation, you will have clarity on what our definitive perspective is on what we mean when we say leadership. And I think it's really going to apply to you. I'm going to share 7 specific, powerful leadership concepts that provide the framework for our entire vision of leadership. These 7 simple principles of leadership. If you can understand how to embody these principles, to deeply understand them, and then bring them to life in your everyday interactions, I promise you, you're going to be one of the more effective leaders in your entire organization. I am going to go a little bit deeper on those 7 principles and give you maybe 1 or 2 or 3, see how far I go, specific techniques or ideas that you might employ to bring those principles to life in your specific role or company. And lastly, this is the part I need your help with. I would like to be able to do a little bit of a Q&A. This is a webinar, so you can't, you can't turn on your video and chat, but please do use the chat function and let me know if you have questions. I will tell you, I'm not great at always monitoring that chat function as I go through the presentation. So I will look for it. It might be a bit delayed, but if I do my job of leaving a bit of time at the end, I will certainly check at that point and see if we have any questions that I can respond to. So if you'd like to stick around for a little bit of a Q&A, type me questions really at any time. I'll try to address them as I go, but at a minimum at the end. So here's the question to get you thinking a little bit. What if I walked up to you and I said, hey, your name, what does it mean to be a leader in your organization? Think about it for a moment. What would you say? Would you have immediate clarity of thought? Would it be just your opinion about what you think it means to be a leader? Or would it be a shared opinion across your organization? Would I hear the same thing if I went and asked other leaders? So what does it mean to be a leader to you in your company? What does it mean to you? In the vast majority of organizations, when I do ask that question, the answers I get are not particularly profound and they're not consistent. One leader may say, you know what, I haven't thought about it. I've been in a leadership role for 12 years. I'm not sure I can tell you exactly how to encapsulate that. Other leaders might tell you 1 or 2 specific sort of perspectives that they bring to the role, but it's oftentimes inconsistent with what someone else says. We've been at this for 12 years with our 7 principles, and I cannot find one organization that will disagree with anything that I'm going to share to you today. So I encourage you to take these 7 foundational principles and make them yours so that you'll have a better answer to that question. You'll say something like, being a great leader means focusing on mission, culture, excellence, pride and appreciation, helping grow people, enforcing standards and being able to deal with duds. It means dealing effectively with conflict. It means involving and communicating with people around decision-making topics that affect them in the organization. And lastly, but not least, it means helping my people have fun. Those are the types of topics I'm going to talk to you about today, and you'll see quickly the lens through which we're going to talk about them. Before we get into that, I want to share a bit of a story. And I just get a kick out of this. I'm a bit of a science geek. I went to school for civil engineering. So maybe this appeals to me a bit more than it will to you, but you'll still like the takeaway from the story. If you may be familiar with the term or the name Max Planck. In the early 1900s, Max Planck was a physicist who was focused on understanding what was happening deep inside atoms. And what he discovered was what has become known as quantum mechanics. Okay? Understanding that at the very smallest of pieces, energy and other things are actually quantized. There's a point at which you can't make it any smaller. Energy levels jump from one level to another level. And he developed what essentially was the foundation of quantum theory. Well, he won a Nobel Prize in 1918 for his discovery. And as you do when you're a well sought after thinker in an academic realm, he was on a tour throughout Europe giving lectures about his new discovery after winning the Nobel Prize of quantum theory, going from university to university, explaining what he meant and what he had discovered about the nature of matter all around us. And these lectures were widely attended by academicians, physicists from throughout the the European world, essentially. Well, he had a chauffeur along the way. He had a driver that would drive him from town to town, from lecture to lecture. And the chauffeur would sit in the back of the lecture and listen. And about 3/4 of the way through, after he had heard the lectures 20, 30, 40 times, the chauffeur, as he was driving to the next location, said to Dr. Planck, he said, it must be boring giving the same speech time and time again. I think at this point, I could give your lecture. He said, and Max Planck said, well, tell you what, let's try it. The next city we get to, how about you jump on stage, you give the speech, and I'll sit in the front row and wear your chauffeur's cap. Well, they actually did this. And the chauffeur gave a beautiful speech. He had heard it. He understood the words. He understood the language. He had heard the speech. And he gave an eloquent explanation of quantum theory. He had the audience enraptured. They thought, wow, they thought he was Dr. Planck. Okay? This was before the internet, and they didn't know this guy from Adam. But it was when one of the professors after the speech stood up in the back and asked a question, a detailed question, to which the fast-thinking chauffeur didn't know how to respond because he only had what we call chauffeur knowledge. He only had high-level knowledge. He could talk the talk, but he didn't have depth of understanding. But the fast-thinking chauffeur responded, as legend goes, he said, why, sir, I would never expect such a simple question from such a high-minded individual at such a university as this. That question's so simple, I will have my chauffeur answer it. And he pointed to Dr. Planck, who stood up and answered the question. This is the difference between chauffeur knowledge and what I'm going to call Planck level knowledge. The difference between knowing the terms, being able to talk the talk, being able to make it sound like you have a deep level of knowledge when in fact you do not. That's the difference I'm going to try to start to explore with these 7 principles of leadership. If you can understand these principles and begin to see opportunities to bring them to life on a regular basis, you will move from that chauffeur level of knowledge that I get from most people when I say, what does it mean to be a leader, to Planck level of knowledge. Excited? I hope so. These are our 7 principles of leadership. I'm going to read them. This is the only slide I'm going to read to you, but I want you to hear them. And I want you to think about how well do you do putting this into action every day. Principle number 1, leaders maintain a never-ending focus on 3 things: the mission of the organization, the culture the organization wants to build, and a constant pursuit of excellence. Number 2, leaders work hard to create an environment where staff are proud of their company. They feel proud of the organization. And the flip side of that pride coin, they know that their company is also proud of them. Another thing leaders do, number 3, is they work incredibly hard to help their employees be successful at work, but they don't stop there. They also find opportunities to help them be more, see more, and do more, and be more successful in life. They're committed to the whole person and that person's success. Number 4, a little bit of the tougher side of things. If you want to build a great organization and help people be successful, you've got to protect the right of your good employees to work with other good employees. Now, notice that doesn't say employees have a right to work with perfect employees, but you as a leader are the one that must protect the right of your employees to work with other good employees. If you want them to have a good workplace experience, if you want to have good team cohesion, if you want to have good quality of products and services, if you want to have satisfied customers, et cetera, et cetera. Number 5, leaders encourage and promote open discussion and analysis as a predicate to decision-making. This can be expanded a bit to essentially say leaders communicate well around decision-making topics. They solicit input when appropriate. They explain why things are happening. They keep people in the know. They don't covet information and hide it to themselves. They don't say, I don't know why we have to do this, but upstairs they're telling us we've got to change our process on. This is not effective communication around decision-making. Number 6, leaders deal effectively with conflict. They don't view conflict as either bad or good. They view it a bit more neutrally, and they're comfortable and effective at dealing with it. And lastly, they make work fun. There's no reason that work needs to be the opposite of play, that work cannot be fun. So the rest of this presentation, we're going to talk about these 7 frameworks through which to view leadership, why they're so important and powerful, and how to bring them to life. Principle number 1, mission, culture, and excellence. I'm not going to presume to talk about your mission. I'm going to leave that up to you, but it's important that as a leader, you're constantly pursuing the mission of your organization. I'm also not going to spend a lot of time talking about excellence. I will say, just as a little bit of a prelude, that one of the best and perhaps most overlooked ways to improve performance or improve culture is just to think a little bit about where your expectations are set and raise them a bit and be more clear about them. And you'll be surprised what happens. Where I really am going to focus on is the meat of this first leadership principle around mission, culture, and excellence, which is workplace culture. We run a company called BetterCulture, and I want to talk a little bit about what we mean by culture and how leaders can intentionally envision and develop that type of culture we're talking about. I guess I had it on the next slide for you to read. Leaders maintain a never-ending focus on mission, culture, and the pursuit of excellence. This is my favorite sort of meta-analysis data that talks about essentially the value of culture. And as you read the first part of what Forbes wrote here in their summary of the value of culture, they said just about any measure that improves the life and satisfaction of an employee. I want to stop there. Anything you can do that will improve either the life or the job satisfaction of an employee. I think putting them in a great culture that they appreciate encapsulates entirely what that is talking about. Okay, something that improves the life or the satisfaction of an employee will in turn improve their performance at work and buoy the organization as a whole. This is as simple and clear of a case as I can possibly make for the value of culture. Anything you can do that improves the life or satisfaction of an employee, data shows, mountains of data shows, will improve their performance and will help the organization produce more products and services, better quality products and services, achieve higher revenues, whatever your desired outcome is. It comes from helping your employees be more happy and excited about their role and contribution at work. So I could go into a lot of detail on the value of culture. I think this is a bit like saying water is wet, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I could show you case study after case study, specific client after specific client that sees all sorts of reasons that culture produces real value for the organization, that drives revenues up and expenses down. I'm just going to pull out one or two on here that are maybe less often cited because I think they're more interesting. You might be surprised to know that there's a lot of value to what's called blue sky in the community. If an employer develops a reputation as an employer of choice, they're seen in their community or in their industry as a great place to work, as a place that people don't badmouth, they actually say good things about. You would be surprised what the downstream effects of that are on that organization. It makes it easier to hire. It makes it easier to attract customers. It increases your reputation. It increases all kinds of things that come from this general blue sky of when somebody says your organization's name, people's initial reaction is, oh yeah, I've heard good things about that place. There's a lot of value in that type of blue sky that leads to increases in revenue. Okay? On the flip side, something people don't think of very often, you hear about, of course, turnover costs and retention and et cetera, but how often do you hear about actually decreases in insurance costs? I could show you organizations that are self-funded on the health insurance side that see significant, I'm talking 20, well, depending on the insurance type, I'm talking 20, 30% decreases in workers' compensation insurance costs, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10% decreases in health insurance costs if they're self-funded and they have employees that actually care about expending their organization's resources. There are all kinds of downstream effects. Safety costs for sure. Organizations with high, strong work cultures, engaged workforces have way fewer injuries and incidents on the job site. All sorts of things related to that maybe people don't think about as directly related to culture. Absolutely are. The bottom line is better culture does lead to better business. But guess what? Building and maintaining culture, it's a little bit like molding with hot clay. It's not a fix it and forget it kind of thing. It takes a lot longer to mold that culture into what you want it to look like. And if you take your hands off it and you turn and you go do something else for 90 days and you come back, it's going to have warped and molded in a direction that you don't want it to go. Building culture takes intentional foresight. It takes some amount of focus on a regular daily basis. And you've got to be clear on what you want. You've got to know how to get it where you want. And then once you get it there, you got to reinforce it. You got to reward it. It takes constant time and attention. I'm moving on to my second principle now. Okay, that's my first principle. just making sure you understand really the value of culture, why you should want it, etc. The second principle, I don't know if you remember what it was about. There's a little bit of a pop quiz here. I'm not going to ask you to respond in the chat box, but you're welcome to if you want. We do an employee engagement survey that we operate. It goes incredibly deep on giving organizations a very clear picture of the health of their culture across division, across genders, across tenures, across age brackets, across various racial brackets, however you might like to see data broken down as far as the health of your organization and how your employees feel about their managers, their organization, et cetera. We provide one of the deepest dives in the entire industry on that topic. It's a terrific product. But when we look at that data, we break it down into 14 primary domains of cultural health. Things like retention risk, employee pride, conflict, innovation, employee input, team chemistry, how employees feel about the C-suite, your top leadership. Do we feel like we're fairly enforcing performance standards? How do people feel about their supervisors? Do they like their pay? Do they feel appreciated? What is how do they feel like they're being invested in? That's what talent management is. And growth and advancement means that opportunities for advancement. Of those categories, I like to ask, which one of these do you think is most important for having a great culture? Which one of these 14 domains, when we slice and dice our data, accounts for the greatest amount of the variance in sort of that total culture score? Hopefully you've been thinking about it for a minute. This is a little bit of an old slide. My kids aren't so much into Clifford anymore, but I built this a year or two ago. I still like it. If you can spot the big dog. The big dog is pride. The degree to which employees feel proud to be a part of your organization will in large part determine how they feel about the company in general, how engaged they are. You show me employees who are proud to work for a specific organization, and I will show you a company with a great culture. You show me a workplace where the employees are not particularly proud to be there, not proud to be associated with that brand or organization, I'll show you a company with a poor work culture. So let's talk a bit about the importance of pride, of intentionally building pride, and how you do that. Again, this is principle 2, that leaders create an environment where staff feel proud of their company. That's where we're going to focus. But equally important, which we're not going to focus on as much today, is also making sure that those employees know that their company is proud of them. Recognition, appreciation, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Not going to spend as much time on that today, but it's important. So how might you systematically build pride? If Brett says pride is important, pride is at the core of having a great workplace culture, what do you do about it? How do you build pride on purpose? What should leaders be doing and saying on a regular daily basis? Well, here's a starting place. Well, if you want people to be proud of what? There are almost limitless opportunities. I like to kind of think of them as hooks on which you can hang your employees' pride, okay? Employees are going to be proud of a lot of different things about your organization, but guess what? They cannot be proud of something about which they don't know anything. They have to have information in order to be proud. If something great happened that an employee did for a customer, that people go, wow, I'm glad I work for a company that does that type of thing. They can only be proud of that if they hear the story about it. If the company gives back to the community, if the company is top of their class, if the company is fill in the blank, people have to have information and it needs to be conveyed in a compelling manner. I'm gonna get back to that in a second. This is just a short list of the types of things that your specific employees might want to be proud of. I'm just going to pick a couple at random from throughout the list. Maybe you're great at promoting employees from within. I'm kind of going down the left-hand column if you're trying to follow me. You might be really proud of the work-life balance that your organization offers, that we care about employees. We encourage them to take vacations. Imagine the types of stuff that your employees might tell their aunt over a Thanksgiving dinner when she says, how's work going? Tell me about your company. What would you love them to say? What are the things that they might be proud or excited about? They might be excited about the awesome facilities that they get to work at. They might be excited about efforts that the organization is making and progress that the organization is making on efforts related to equity or diversity or inclusion. impact on the lives of the people that they serve, the quality of products and services, how fast they're growing their market share, the impact they have on the environment, how efficient they are, how profitable they are, how dominant they are. Okay, you get the point. There's an unlimited number of things about which your employees might want to be proud, but they can only feel that pride to the extent that they have that information delivered to them in a compelling fashion. You send me a newsletter once a year that highlights 5 things that I don't read. Does that help me feel any more proud? No. But if the longtime CEO of the organization sits down with me over lunch and tells me a story about how the organization got started, about something that relates to the values of the organization, about an employee that they could not live without and how much they appreciate them, those types of things might make people go, wow, this place is kind of special. I appreciate that information and perspective that I've gotten. Okay? So it's not just what, it's also how you deliver the information. It makes a big difference. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see in this regard. Organizations missing opportunities to build pride because, oh yeah, we have an intranet page and we post stuff, or we put stuff on a newsletter once a month. That is kind of the stuff people should be proud of. Well, A, 70% of your employees probably don't read it. And B, if they do, they probably skim it relatively quickly and it doesn't make the impact that if it was told in a compelling way, it might have made. Okay? Statistics don't really make people proud. Stories make people proud. Sort of human interest kinds of things. Okay? The impact on a customer, on an employee, etc. Figure out how to tell those stories effectively. Kind of beat that one to death. Again, tell stories, build a mystique. And lastly, differentiate. If you want your employees to be proud of your organization, talk about the things that make you different. If every competitor of yours offers the same loyalty program, offers the same employee benefits package, does the same thing with regard to giving back to the community, then I challenge you to think about what could you start to do to actually differentiate yourself. It's hard to be proud of average. Okay? If your organization essentially just blends in with the pack and does best practices, what everybody else does, why do I want to be proud of that? You got to do something to stand out before I'm going to say, you know, what's cool about my company is X. Find ways to differentiate and then talk about those things. Your employees will appreciate it and it'll build their level of pride. The third principle that I want to talk to you guys about today is leaders work hard to help staff be successful both at work and in life. So I am challenging you to find opportunities throughout your regular daily, weekly, monthly routines to not miss the chance to help people be more successful in their role. This is something that people walk past all the time. I'm just going through my daily grind. I'm thinking about me, not what could I have said or done or shown or demonstrated or listened to help somebody else be more successful. A great leader is tuned into this. They're tuned into helping other people be more successful. We teach huge modules on this program, probably 30 specific tactics that we might be able to specifically teach to share with you how to do this effectively. But maybe just to pick a couple at random, a couple of my favorites. There's one on here called No Shallow Relationships. If you show me an organization where there are shallow relationships in 2 directions, one from the employee toward the employer. If I talk to employees and I say, tell me about your job, and they say, it's a job, pays the bills. Immediately I know this is someone who has a shallow relationship with their organization. It's just a job, it's just a paycheck. That employee is almost never going to be particularly proud of where they work. And it's going to be hard to motivate them to want to be more, do more, take more responsibility, grow and develop. Okay, they're not interested in it. They're just there for the paycheck. Okay, so you've got to deepen those relationships. You've got to help the organization be, or the individual be more connected to their company. Start to tie their ego to the company. Build that pride. Get them more connected. All of a sudden, they're going to be more open to your growth, your coaching, your feedback, etc. Does that make sense? Hope so. The other direction is I hate to see shallow relationships between a company or a manager and their employees. If I hear such things when I talk to managers as, tell me a little bit about your division, or, what are your responsibilities? And they say something like, I hate to hear this. Oh, well, I manage a production floor, about 30 FTEs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 30 FTEs? What I just heard is, yeah, I need 30 butts in the seats. I really don't care who they are. I try not to get to know them, et cetera. That also inhibits that manager or that organization's ability to invest in and grow people, because the company is sending signals that they don't care about the folks that are working for them. They care about getting shifts filled. They care about quotas and deliverables, but they're not demonstrating that they care about people. And that also inhibits their ability to help those people grow, develop, both personally and professionally. If you want to be great at building stars, you've got to have relationships with people. Mentoring, coaching, all those things start with trust. They start with transparency. And you can't be afraid of friendship, afraid of relationships if you want to be a world-class leader. I think that's enough off this list. I'm going to move on to some other topics. Number 4, dealing with duds. Okay. Remember this 4th leadership principle that I talked about on the intro, is that great leaders protect the right of their good employees to work with other good employees. Not perfect, but good. I want to give you a thought experiment. Let's say you're a part of a work team. There's 4 of you on a team, and then there's a manager. Okay. And let's say you're a terrific employee, because I'm sure you are. But you got one person working next to you that shows up late, that's negative, that never quite has their work done, that you're always having to cover for a little bit, that life goes on month after month with this person just really not holding their fair share. What is the resolution to that? How does that get resolved? It's almost always only through intervention of a manager, of a leader, with partnership with their HR department, et cetera. But the only way that you solve this issue, I guarantee you, if you're the great employee and you're working next to someone who's a pain in the butt, that isn't getting their work done, that causes more hassle and work for you, you don't like that very much. You're not real happy right now. Okay. You're a risk to go take another job somewhere else where you'll be appreciated, where you won't have to work an unfair amount, where you won't have to work with that jackass. Okay. So this is not a good situation, and it needs to be resolved. And the only person that can do it is a leader. You've got to protect the right of that good employee to work with other good employees. Okay? This is, well, let me show you some data, not get ahead of myself. This is data from our employee engagement survey across hundreds of organizations. And if you look at the red line, the green line doesn't matter, the blue line doesn't matter. The red line, the blue line is one specific company, doesn't matter who that was. The green line is the best score we've ever seen across all of our 49 questions. The only line I want you to care about is the red line, which is the average of all the companies we've ever surveyed across our 49 core questions. And I want you to look at this point right there. It is the second lowest data point on average of all 49 questions that we ask. And here's what that question says. My company effectively addresses poor staff performance. Now, who do you think scores that question low? Do you think it's your bad employees scoring that question low? Your vacuums, your cynics, your grumblers, your non-performers? Do you think they're going, yeah, I'm getting away with murder. My company's terrible. No, they're the ones that say, oh yeah, my company's good at that. The people that give that a low score are your stars. They're your best employees. People going, heck no, I've been waiting months for my manager to do something about this jerk that I have to work with. Those are the people that you want most happy, most engaged. And one of their biggest dissatisfiers, and I can show you the data to prove it, is when managers don't protect their right to work with other good employees. This is an imperative if you want to have a great place to work. This is the number one thing that will hold you back from getting where you want. You've got to be willing to deal with your duds. Okay? So a couple thoughts around dealing with problem employees. Number one, don't wait. Deal with it now. By waiting, you are affecting multiple audiences. Sometimes employers, in particular HR departments, which is understandable, they have a risk mitigation role to play, but they'll have a conference and a conversation and they'll say, the manager will say, I've got to get this person off my team. They're driving everybody nuts. They're not meeting standards. They're a pain to work with. And HR will sort of casually say, well, how bad is it? What can you show me? What can you document? Have you talked to them? How much risk is there? Are they particularly litigious? Tell me a bit more. You know what? I'm not comfortable with it yet. Let's just put this off. Sometimes that's good advice. Most of the time it's not. People know when an employee is not a fit, and you've got to increase your level of urgency to clearly document and move that process forward. Because guess what? Every day you wait, you've got what would be otherwise really engaged employees getting more and more dissatisfied, more and more frustrated with their manager and their employer. So deal with them now. And here's maybe an ethical case. Through that HR lens, people look at what should be accurately and understandably, are we being fair to the employee? And that is a reasonable question. Are we being fair to the employee? Have we made our standards clear? Have we given them opportunities to meet those standards and improve? Have we helped training, conferences, et cetera? And can we document that they're not responding to that? All those things are reasonable questions to be fair to the employee. But there's other people that you have to be fair to as well. The other employees that person has to work with, and ultimately your customer. Okay? If you run a nursing facility and you're providing services to my grandmother who's in that facility, and you've got somebody there who's not performing the way that they should, who's negative, who's maybe not even compliant with certain things, please do something about it. I care as a customer. Your employees care. So be fair to the employee, be fair to your duds, but don't treat them as if they're the only player in this formula. You've got other people that are impacted. Number two, this is a little throw in. This is not legal advice, it's culture advice. But don't overdo confidentiality. If you have a situation where you have an underperforming employee, and if it's going to take some time to either help them meet the standard or to work through a performance discipline process and ultimately maybe exit them the organization, but it's going to take time. Guess what? That time is frustrating to your stars, who as they're looking around saying, is anyone going to do anything about this? Now you are doing something about it. It's going to be a 90-day, slow, drawn-out process that maybe or maybe won't end up in some type of action that can be taken against the employee. Meanwhile, your stars, your best employees, are getting increasingly frustrated day after day. So the question here that's on the screen, at least, is if you overdo confidentiality, if you just act like, hey, nothing's going on here, even though meanwhile you're working on performance discipline, but you don't tell anybody anything, as your stars look around, there's only two things they can think of you. Either you don't care about the issue because you're not acting like you care, you're being very buttoned up and confidential about it, or you're just too stupid to notice. Oh yeah, well, you might care, but yeah, Brett's not paying attention as a manager. He's off playing golf and doing what else. He hasn't even noticed there's a performance issue. Now the fact might be, oh no, I've noticed and I care, but HR is telling me we can't do anything about it, and I've got to wait 90 or 180 days until we can, and so we're just kind of working through the system. That's not in your favor as a manager to have your employees thinking that about you, that you don't care, that they have to work with a jerk, or that you're not paying enough attention to notice. So what's the counter to that? The counter to that is just mentioning just this much to your stars, that you're aware there's a problem, that you're working on it, and that you appreciate their patience as you go through the process. Just a few things, not to everybody, not at a team meeting, but to your star employees will go a long ways toward helping them decrease their frustration and feel at least a bit more appreciative of what the organization is working toward to protect their right to work with good staff. Leadership principle 5, decision-making. This is the more cerebral part of leadership. There's a lot of great content and ideas that we can share with people that come to our programs around how to make more effective decisions, both from a quality of decision perspective and also from an impact and process of implementation and communication of decision-making perspective. Today, I just have a few insights that I'll share. The principle here is that leaders encourage and promote open discussion and analysis before they make decisions. Again, I broaden this usually a bit to just in general talk about the communication process, both leading up to decision-making and after decision-making, that we do that effectively so that people feel bought in, engaged, listened to, cared about, and that they understand why decisions are made across the organization. One of the biggest things that holds back leaders being successful in this particular area is focusing too much on talking and not enough on listening. Lousy listening will absolutely hold you back from meeting your goals as being a leader who is seen as effectively communicating around decision-making for the organization. Here are 2 tips that I promise everybody on this webinar that if you will lean into these 2 things for the next week, you will find opportunities to use them and you will find it helpful. I can't endorse these 2, what will sound like incredibly simple ideas. I cannot encourage them enough. Okay? Try these 2 things. Make yourself a note. Give it a shot. When somebody comes to you in the workplace and asks you a question, what's our natural response? To answer the question. Okay? Someone's coming to me and asking a question, they're expecting an answer. Well, they might be expecting an answer, but guess what? Sometimes you're not answering the right question. Sometimes you're not giving the best answer, but you're unaware of those things if you just answer the question. So here's my challenge for you, which I know sounds unbelievably simple. This took me about 7 years to learn myself. Even after it was written in our training content by one of my co-founders, I didn't really get it. I didn't understand the power of this until I checked my ego, I slowed down and I started trying. If someone comes to you, maybe that you manage, and asks you a question, now not a simple question, like where do we keep the extra paper towels? Just tell them, okay? But if they come asking a question with some meat to it, I encourage you to respond in one of 2 ways. And one of those ways is not to answer the question, okay? Instead, try this. Say, I have some ideas, but what do you think? Or, that's a really interesting question. Why do you ask? Those 2 responses will do incredible things for you having a deeper understanding of why the person's asking, what they're really trying to get done. Oftentimes, the first question someone asks you is not really the deeper question that's on their mind. And if you just answer the high-level question, you never see the iceberg that was underneath that question. So respond with, tell me more about why you're asking. And oftentimes, you will find additional information that significantly colors in how it would be most helpful for you to respond. So try that. Don't answer the question. Say, yeah, that's, why are you asking? I'd like to know more about why you're asking, and see what they say. Try that. Okay? If it's a different type of a question that's a bit more strategic or other things, instead of just giving your opinion, say, well, I have some ideas, but first, what do you think? Because guess what? That person walked up to you 3 seconds ago and asked you a question. You waited 1.5 seconds before you're presumed to answer it. Okay, 1.5 seconds before you give your response. There's a chance that person's been thinking about that question for the last day, 2 days, week, maybe even month. Maybe there's something behind the question that they've been thinking about. And if you respond by saying, how do you think we should respond to that? And then listen, you might be surprised what you hear. You might hear a response where you learn something about the person and their thought processes. You might get a response that's significantly better than what you would have said, presuming that you have to answer every question. You might learn what they're thinking is way off base. Oh my God, if we did that, we'd get sued. Now you have a coaching opportunity, okay? You can learn a lot from just saying, what do you think? If you want to be great at growing people, at making decisions as an organization, you've got to get out of your head and get into other people's heads. And these 2 questions are great ways to do that. I can't recommend it highly enough. Leadership principle 6. We are 5/6 of the way there, guys, to building this schema, okay? The 6th principle is about dealing effectively with conflict. Now, we use that word effectively very intentionally. It doesn't say avoid conflict. It doesn't say barrel ahead and don't ever be afraid of conflict. Just take it on the nose all the time. It says deal effectively with conflict. And that means you need to employ different strategies at different times. But at the heart of being effective at conflict is a very simple idea. And that idea is this, that conflict in and of itself in a work setting is not either good or bad. Conflict is not good and it's not bad. Now, if you just walk up to the average American and you say, is conflict good or bad? About 75, 80% of people are going to go, conflict, that's bad. Our natural inclination is if someone is upset about something, if someone has a beef with somebody else, somebody's got their nose out of joint, that's a bad thing. Somebody screwed up. What would we say or do that offended them? Okay? That's really not true from an organizational perspective. Let me instead share this perspective. If in any organization, our goal per our first leadership principle is to pursue mission, culture, and guess what? Excellence. It is impossible to pursue excellence over any time span. Let's assume that you're excellent today. You are top of your field in everything you do in your organization. If you're going to be excellent 5 years from now, are you going to have to change something? Yeah, you're going to have to change. And odds are you're probably not quite excellent yet today. And if you need to get there, you got to change things. Businesses change faster today than ever before. But social psychologists have known for at least 100 years that when systems make changes, that change causes conflict. If you have an office of more than 10 people and you move where the paper filing cabinet is from one corner of the office to another corner, somebody's going to be mad about it. If you don't believe me, try it out. If you change the paint color on a wall, if you change the ply of your toilet paper, somebody is going to be upset about it. So making changes in a system causes conflict, okay? Let alone if you change a software system, if you change a process, if you change fill in the blanks for your organization. We all have experienced that causes conflict. So here's the question, is that conflict bad? The conflict that inevitably comes with making changes that are intended to benefit the organization, is that conflict a bad thing? Is that conflict a good thing? I'd make the argument that conflict is mostly a good thing because it's unavoidable. And the fact that you created it means that you care enough about excellence that you're pushing toward it, that you're making changes. So you show me an organization with no conflict, I'll show you an apathetic company that's not innovating and changing. You show me a company that's innovating and changing and pushing the envelope, I'm going to show you an organization that has conflict going on, but good conflict, inevitable conflict that's a sign of a real inclination to pursue excellence. When people step into a leadership role for the first time and they make a decision that to them makes sense, and all of a sudden they got people coming to them saying, hey, why the heck did we have to do that? It catches people off guard. New leaders don't know usually that, when you're in charge of a group of people and you have to make decisions, not everybody's going to like them. And that catches them off guard. And their first reaction oftentimes is to go, whoa, maybe I made a mistake here. Let me back up. Tell me more. Why are you upset? What's going on? And it causes doubt. Now, you should listen to people. You should gather input. But oftentimes, if you want to be successful as a leader, you've got to understand conflict comes with the territory. Not everyone's going to love whatever we decide. So expect it. Know that it's coming and view that conflict as a healthy indication of an actual resolve to pursue excellence. So again, I like to help people view conflict through a neutral lens. There's of course conflicts that are bad. There are of course conflicts that are damaging and should be avoided, but not all conflict is bad. And in fact, some conflict is actually a positive sign. Winston Churchill said, to improve is to change, but to be perfect is to change often. Change, change, change. And guess what? Change creates conflict. The last leadership principle. When I ask roomfuls of people, I say, fill in the blank. I say, short is the opposite of tall. Say, skinny is the opposite of, maybe, am I allowed to say fat on a webinar? Fat. Fill in the blank. Long is the opposite of short. Work is the opposite of, and a lot of times I'll hear people say play or fun. Work and fun do not need to be opposing forces. There are some old school mentalities, some old school managers out there. I unfortunately could share with you specific conversations I've had with people, mostly about their previous workplace, which is a good thing, where they have said essentially, if the bigwigs, the managers, the suits in their cubicle farm of an organization heard people laughing, having fun, that was discouraged. That was sort of an indication that, hey, who's not working around here? Get back to work. Now, that is a ridiculous mindset. We can have fun and work hard at the same time. And in fact, having an enjoyable workplace fills up people's tank, allows them to be more productive in the time that they are at work. And guess what? Makes them actually want to be there and do the work. It may even want them to be there more, to work longer, to work harder, to be more connected to the mission, their colleagues in the organization, to be more what we call engaged with the workplace. Back to that early data that I showed you about just about anything an organization that can do to improve the life or satisfaction of an employee. Do you think fun helps improve the life and satisfaction of an employee? You better believe it. Will in turn improve their job performance and buoy the organization as a whole. So it's time we start taking fun serious. I mean it, taking fun serious. If you've got somebody in your workplace that's just fun to be around, the life of the party, they make people laugh and smile, put this in their job description. Help us have fun. Make it part of their job. Reward them, bonus them for doing it. If you can make work more fun here, there will be benefits to the organization. There'll be benefits to the workplace. Why isn't this an imperative of leadership that we try to help people, guess what, enjoy their work? It's silly that we don't take this more seriously than we do, because there are actual benefits to the organization for doing so. I threw in a little, maybe a more serious quote here at the end, but it's really true. Life does not cease to be funny when people die any more than it ceases to be serious when people laugh. If people are laughing in the workplace, it doesn't mean they're not serious about their work. It means they're enjoying their work. It means they're enjoying their colleagues, and that is a terrific thing. We should be doing more of it. Now, those 7 principles that I've gone through multiple times with you today, both in the introduction and then one at a time, can be really summarized into 7 key words that help me remember them. And those words, as I go down the list from top to bottom, are culture, pride for principle 2, growth, standards, that's the duds one, decisions, conflict, and fun. Okay. If you want to be a stronger leader, take these principles and sear them into your mind. Think about, as I go about my daily interactions, how can I find 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes to help my team and my organization accomplish these goals, to help people around me be more focused on mission, culture, and the pursuit of excellence. That's principle 1. To feel more proud of their company and know their company's proud of them. I know I didn't talk about that today, but that's principle 2. To help people grow, principle 3, and be more successful at work and in life. Number 4, to enforce standards and to protect the right of my good employees to work with other good employees. Number 5, to be intentional about how we make decisions and how we communicate about those decisions. Number 6, to not be afraid of conflict and to know that conflict is actually a neutral thing that needs to be navigated skillfully and effectively, but not avoided. And lastly, to be fun. If you can take these 7 simple mindsets and build them into a bit of a schema for how you view the workplace, your influence in that space, all of a sudden, I think you have a much better answer to that question I started out with for what does it mean to be a leader? It means this: culture, pride, growth, standards or duds, decisions, conflict, and fun. With that, I want to just share a couple things for those of you that have stuck with me. If you're interested, we have a couple of newer products that we're offering to the market that help organizations and leaders build culture from the top down. These are leadership-oriented programs. Things like on the left, our on-demand leadership development program, our mindset leadership program that can be accessed via the internet, via a mobile app at any time, that has 56 powerful leadership videos and a beautiful full-color study guide. We have our in-person 2-day mindset leadership program, which this year will be running September 6th and 7th in La Vista, Nebraska, which is essentially Omaha adjacent. If you're interested in that, it's a 2-day fully immersive mindset leadership program experience. And then we have a 7-month-long class called Propel, which is really designed for frontline leaders and rising stars, but we have more experienced leaders that decide to attend that as well. Currently, it's really just an in-person program in Omaha, 7 sessions. So mostly we get local folks who attend that, but we do have a waiting list for people that would like to participate from a virtual type of experience on that one as well. Last thing I want to mention, we've got this exciting new product called the 20 Tenets of Culture. And it's the first time we've ever built something that's designed for every employee in an organization. And it really has 3 goals. This is a software product where we provide a specific self-assessment for every employee in your system. And then we give them a year's worth of focused coaching that goes not just to them, but across your entire organization on 20 themes, what we call our 20 tenets of culture. They're also our 20 tenets of success. Those 20 things will help all of your employees be A, more successful in their own personal and professional life. B, they'll help build stronger teams, team chemistry, and C, it will lift company culture from the bottom up if every employee starts believing and embracing some of these 20 concepts. If you're interested in any of these products, feel free to reach out to us directly. But if you're a chamber partner, reach out to your local chamber if that's how you heard about this, and let them know, hey, A, I really appreciate this Better Culture content that you've made available to us. And B, I'd like to know more. Chambers may have access to certain discounts, access to other things that we do. We love our chamber partners, and we appreciate the fact that they're helping us on that mission to make the world a better place to work. Again, I'm Brett Hoogeveen, co-founder of BetterCulture. I went like 3 minutes longer than I was expecting, but I would love to stick around, answer questions. If anybody has anything in the chat for me for a Q&A, I'll be happy to respond. Thank you for being here very much. Take care.